Achacha Fonina, and I am so Yakaobiana, 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 and I am so Yakaobiana.
We don't find an economic problem and say that let us go to IMF. Why? Where is that coming from? Is that Kwame Nkrumah's Ghana? That the black man is capable of managing his own affairs? Have we forgotten that? Nkrumah said the black man is capable. He said, let us do the independence and let us show the world that after all, the black man is capable of managing his own affairs. 50, 65 years later, the black man has a problem. He says, let's go to the IMF. Why? Why can't we have a problem, economic problem, and make a determination that this economic problem, we can do this?
What we are doing right now, we're not going anywhere. Because watch this, I'm telling you, what we are doing right now, I want you to stand. Let me show you something. Just stand. If I'm in opposition, just face this way. If I'm in opposition and you are in office, I hold your leg like that. Try to move.
Yeah.
Try to move.
I cannot move.
Try to do something. You are not going anywhere.
Yeah.
I will make sure I circumvent you and sabotage you until you leave office.
Wow.
And when you also come,
same thing.
I will also do the same to you. So I don't wish you well, you don't wish me well. So the nation is bleeding. The nation is bleeding.
This minority succeeded in reducing e-levy from 1.75 to 1.50. I mean, when they came, the intention was 1.75. There were many other activities that would have been captured by e-levy. They've abandoned it thanks to the opposition and our constructive criticisms of the policy in order to be able to improve it, including remittances. And even more importantly, government have already lost half-year revenue of whatever it anticipated from e-levy. That can only be attributed to purpose and tenacity of a minority group in parliament. You may be dissatisfied with us. We just took a legal step.
What we are doing right now, I want you to stand. Let me show you something. Just stand. If I'm in opposition, just face this way. If I'm in opposition and you are in office, I hold your leg like that. Try to move.
Yeah.
Try to move.
I cannot move.
Try to do something. You are not going anywhere.
Yeah.
I will make sure I circumvent you and sabotage you until you leave office.
Wow.
And when you also come,
same thing.
I will also do the same to you. So I don't wish you well, you don't wish me well. So the nation is bleeding. The nation is bleeding.
Good evening. Welcome to this edition of Good Evening Ghana. It's such an amazing pleasure to be with you at the beginning of the week. Thank you for your time. Tonight, we are at it again, aren't we? And if you've been reading the social media commentary, a lot is anticipated from this program relating to what we will be saying about Ghana's decision to eventually go to the IMF. Now, we had interactions with the Ministry of Finance and we'll be reporting to you what they said. But we do have a full touchscreen presentation. If you've seen our flyer, we're going to deal with that in extenso. Also, we were showing you that tape of the Archbishop because it's kind of first time. He gave me that interview about 2 years ago, but maybe 3, I think. But this is the first time that there's a clear political manifestation that sort of fits into the predictions that he made on that day. Regrettably, he made predictions about how the political system sort of leads us into some difficulties. Tonight, we'll explore that as well. Also, we have an interview. The president of the Ghana Bar Association, the Honorable Yaboafo, is in the studio to talk to us. Last week, he was in Accra for the 40th anniversary of the Martyrs' Day. He promised to grant us an interview, and tonight he's here. We'll be asking him all the questions that civil society have been asking the Bar Association. Why are they not criticizing Akufo-Addo's government? Is it because Akufo-Addo is the first president who mounted the presidential throne straight from an active practice at the bar. Is that the reason why the bar is not criticizing him? But is it true that the bar is not criticizing the government? Is there something to criticize that the bar is not doing? Tonight, we will get into that with Yao Boafo, who is joining us in the studio. Graciously has come to Accra. He's a Kumasi-based lawyer. Of course, used to be president of the Ashanti Bar, later on general secretary of the bar, and now the president of the bar. So this is a thorough blue blood bar association lawyer who will join us in the studio so that we talk about all of that. So that's a big show for tonight. We will be dealing with e-levy, and we'll be dealing also with IMF in some great detail. So before we continue, we will take a break because we don't want our presentations to be interrupted, and our people always insist that we take the break. 2.5 minutes of break. Back on the touch screen, it will be fireworks. We'll be right back.
Now you be Oga. Oh, good evening. Good evening. Now you be Oga. Good evening. Now you be Oga. Any other so now you be Oga. Any Adom. Oh, good evening. Good evening. Now you be Oga. Good evening. Now you be Oga. Any other
Good evening, Ghana.
Otchere for Nina, and I am so Yakaobiana, 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 and I am so Yakaobiana.
We don't find an economic problem and say that let us go to IMF. Why? Where is that coming from? What, is that Kwame Nkrumah's Ghana? That the black man is capable of managing his own affairs? Have we forgotten that? Nkrumah said the black man is capable. He said, let us do the independence. And let us show the world that after all, the black man is capable of managing his own affairs. 50, 65 years later, the black man has a problem. He says, let's go to the IMF. Why? Why can't we have a problem, economic problem, and make a determination that this economic problem, we can do this?
What we are doing right now, we're not going anywhere. Because watch this, I'm telling you, what we are doing right now, I want you to stand. Let me show you something. Just stand. If I'm in opposition, just face this way. If I'm in opposition and you are in office, I hold your leg like that. Try to move.
Yeah.
Try to move.
I cannot move.
Try to do something. You are not going anywhere.
Yeah.
I will make sure I circumvent you and sabotage you until you leave office.
Wow.
And when you also come,
Same thing.
I will also do the same to you. So I don't wish you well, you don't wish me well. So the nation is bleeding. The nation is bleeding.
This minority succeeded in reducing e-levy from 1.75 to 1.50. I mean, when they came, the intention was 1.75. There were many other activities that would have been captured by e-levy. They've abandoned it thanks to the opposition and our constructive criticisms of the policy in order to be able to improve it, including remittances. And even more importantly, government have already lost half-year revenue of whatever it anticipated from e-levy. That can only be attributed to purpose and tenacity of a minority group in parliament. You may be dissatisfied with us. We just took a legal step.
What we are doing right now, I want you to stand. Let me show you something. Just stand. If I'm in opposition, just face this way. If I'm in opposition and you are in office, I hold your leg like that. Try to move.
Yeah.
Try to move.
I cannot move.
Try to do something. You are not going anywhere.
Yeah.
I will make sure I circumvent you and sabotage you until you leave office.
Wow.
And when you also come,
Same thing.
I will also do the same to you. So I don't wish you well, you don't wish me well. So the nation is bleeding. The nation is bleeding.
Welcome aboard, and it's 27 minutes past the top of the hour, 9 o'clock. Good evening, welcome to Good Evening Ghana. Let's go to the text messages and see what people have been saying. Since Friday, there's been a lot of anticipation about what Good Evening Ghana is going to say about the IMF. And the video that we showed you, in which I was talking about a country that should not just run to IMF when there's a problem, has been widely circulated, and it's been circulated to suggest that something I said was not correct. Tonight, we will interrogate that and have a look. Meanwhile, or first of all, let's go to the text messages. Tonight, we start with that. Matilda, what do you have?
Okay, so we have from Edward Bamford Darko. Going to IMF for bailout in a global economic downturn is the worst decision by any country. Fears of economic data and global economic downturn is disillusion. Why didn't you go to IMF in 2020 and 2021 when all indicators were grounded, and rather choosing to do so when indicators are gradually upgrading? As I have said in my previous comments, no time in our economic history can be compared to the current economic situation. We were not an independent country during 1945 when similar problems occurred, and the likeness is this time. Was there IMF at that time? No amount of international financial aid can solve our current internal situation because it's coming from outside and not inside. If the country's economic managers are unable to harness local resources and brave through media and opposition propagandas, there is no way the country can come out of the situation. It is time to value our local solutions and stop depending on foreign support. How long should it take Africans to learn to become independent? Should we always run back to the West and East for help? Is the black man not capable of managing his own affairs? And also from Don Jake, I like genuine journalists like yourself. You've declared your political color, yet doing a great job. Unlike some fake journalists I know who are playing politics on daily basis, but masquerading as neutrals. And then also from Kwejo NPP, we have a lot to learn from you tonight as usual. You are the standard in Ghana. All the best, St. Paul. And then from Isifu Ali Dula Bando, this is your voice against the country going to IMF. There is nothing to defend again. Aloyi Kofi GH also says, this alone answers all. You can't convince anyone that under the administration of the NPP, going to IMF is more reasonable. And then also from our Hassan Samudin, someone said whoever is able to defend this IMF U-turn will be able to defend Satan in front of God on Judgment Day. And from Abraham Entry, David, are we on different planets? What happened in Muhammad's era was very serious than COVID-19 and Russia and Ukraine war. All major commodities we sell abroad dropped downwards, unlike Nane's era, where all commodities prices surging upwards, most especially crude oil and gold. Our predicament now as a country is purely managerial. We emptied all our buffers, which were set up by the previous administration.
Right,
also,
Alex, please continue, lady. Christabel.
Also, coming from Morris White, there might be something good about Mahama. It seems these people cannot live without him. What kind of leaders crab is this? They just don't have problem-solving skills, but very good blaming others. Arise Ghana Youth. Also coming from Yeli Nathan, let us know all the funds. That's a sinking fund, heritage, stabilization fund, infrastructure fund, ESLA, etc. bequeathed to Nanado and Oforiata. The proceeds from the 2 additional oil fields, the grants received to fight COVID, and the individual contributions to the COVID fund manned by Gloria Kufu, and how it was expended, please. Also coming from Zulkifo. We live in a country where an opposition party sits back and backstabs a government in power just to see it fail while seeking for electors to vote for them into power. Why will a minority leader of an opposition party publicly declare credits to him and his honorable members for making the government not get the targeted tax revenue? Shaking my head. Is this the democratic governance we seek for in Ghana? Also coming from Zulkifo, coming from Mubra, ex-Mubra. This blame game won't work. Let's take responsibility and fix the country. You are given mandate to govern, and you are expected to live up to expectation. And this argument about whose IMF is better than the other is the most shameful comparison we indeed expected from the NPP. Thank you. And lastly, coming from Nana Apiakubi, I am in highly anticipation, but remember NDC went to IMF because of economic mismanagement, but NPP is going to IMF due to global meltdown. The difference is clear. However, we shall bounce back stronger.
Right, Alexander Sefat writes, and I just read a few to start us off. He says, one of the reasons why Ghana is going to IMF is that we are currently running on the balance of payment deficit. Therefore, we need the bailout to balance our payments. Moving forward, what we need to do as a nation is to take our industrialization agenda very serious. The country has developed a taste for foreign goods. Therefore, we import more commodities, capital and services than we export, thereby putting excess demand on foreign currencies. Secondly, we have to be fiscally disciplined. There are some policies we need to take a second look at, such as 1, the free SHS, ex gratia, and 3, free fuel to government appointees and office holders. Richmond from Stefri also says there's only one journalist, one political platform, one Ghana, and one Paul Adom Otchere. And lastly, for now, this is from Aaron Babako Kokomesa. He says the IMF is not the best option for Ghana's economy to recover or compete with other advanced economies. IMF is not the solution to save the economy of Ghana. They will rather impose on us what to do and not to accomplish. IMF is rather a setback for Ghana's economy, but not a blessing. He continues, my point is that we currently have what it takes to best put our economy in a better, rightful economic position for a better tomorrow. We have the resources, the technocrats that can manage the economy. Why do we have to run to a foreign financial hub for assistance or aid? Back to you, Paul.
So this one from Lily Rose. NDC has taken Ghana to IMF 10 times, even when there was no global pandemic. Also, they never implemented any single social intervention programs. And then this one from Richard A. Adomako. What do we do what we do is we spend like drunks. This is inherently in our society where we spend what we don't have. Cut all the excessive expenses for government expenditures. And this one's from Louise Ayesu, very disappointed about the IMF decision. But one thing is sure, there surely will be something new to learn today about the whole issue. And this one's from Aaron Babako. IMF is not the best option for Ghana's economy to recover or compete with another advanced economies. IMF is not the solution to solve the economy of Ghana. They will be rather impose on us what to do and not to accomplish. IMF is rather a setback for Ghana's economy, not a blessing. And I think you did this one.
The letter dated July 1, 2022, from the President of the Republic of Ghana, authorizing the Finance Minister to commence formal engagement with the International Monetary Fund to support an economic recovery program, will not do us any good in the long run. He says, my point is that although we are a third world, developing economy, we have technocrats, economic gurus, economic think tanks, and higher academic institutions that are competing with international academic bodies. And above all, traditional authorities have been agents of development within our traditional settings. They can tremendously help to put the economy into its proper context by soliciting economic ideas from them, but not running to International Monetary Fund for a bailout. IMF will not serve us any good. Now, Lamte Bashid, okay, lastly before you come back, he says, your points are always apt and I can never miss this show in my life.
Okay, thank you very much. We are on. The text messages are coming, so let me just see. All right, welcome back to the show. So as soon as the IMF announcement was made on Friday, the social media trolls began, and they had a video of me saying that I do not understand why an opposition or any politician will recommend that as soon as we have a problem, let's go to the IMF. Yes, but that's correct. You have a problem, you think through it, don't you? And then you find a solution. If you can't find a solution, then you go to the IMF. And did the Ministry of Finance find a solution or not? And I had some difficulties with this. So yesterday I went to speak to the people at the Ministry of Finance. Before then, though, let's play the 35-second video of the point I made here on this show about why it is not great for an African country, as soon as you hit a problem, you go to the IMF. No, you have to think through it first. You have to take first steps to think through it and then create something. IMF can be a second, third, fourth, last option. That's the point I was making, and I think the point is still relevant. Here's the video.
We don't find an economic problem and say that let us go to IMF. Why? Where is that coming from? Is that Kwame Nkrumah's Ghana? That the black man is capable of managing his own affairs? Have we forgotten that? Nkrumah said, the black man is capable. He said, let us do the independence. And let us show the world that after all, the black man is capable of managing his own affairs. 50, 65 years later, the black man has a problem. He says, let's go to the IMF. Why? Why can't we have a problem, economic problem, and make a determination that this economic problem, we can do this?
Yes, but I still stand by that. If you have an economic problem, you make a decision of what you want to do with the economic problem. If it gets to a place where you cannot do anything about it, then you go to the IMF. Did the government get to the place where they cannot do anything about it? I don't know. You answer the question. I have my answer, but I'm not going to tell you now. Let me tell you what my concern was, though, when I heard the announcement on Friday. And I begin with the Honorable Ken Ofori-Atta, a very decent man at the Ministry of Finance, and people have been calling for let Ken Ofori-Atta go, he's tired, he's rest, all that. Yeah, that's an opinion that people have. Others have a different opinion. But my concern was, first of all, the solution that was proffered by the government, a very difficult solution, was to introduce an innovative tax, e-levy. So I was worried that, did the Ministry of Finance get the projections of e-levy wrong? If they did, then that's bad. Then as a Ministry of Finance, they really shouldn't have projected wrong. Why am I saying that they may have projected wrong? You see it as I come through the story. So this is Honorable Ken Ofori-Atta. This is Honorable Charles Eduboahen, the Deputy, the Minister of State at the Ministry of Finance, another gentleman, and a very dependable guy, I believe, that you can depend on. And this is the very hardworking Abena Ose Asare, who is also Member of Parliament for Etiwa, Deputy Minister of Finance, and my own Member of Parliament, John Kuma. Dr. John Kuma, he's also the Deputy Minister of Finance. These are the four people upon whose shoulders led by Ken Ofori-Atta, that the entire process is standing, the entire process of recovery. And at the end of this presentation, I'll be talking about what we should be charging them with. That's after the IMF, what next? And we have to give them the faith and belief that they will be able to deal with it. But let's go on and look at the rest of the details that I put out. Okay, so e-levy projections. Now, here it is. Government had projected 600 million, which is what government was going to get from the e-levy over the period since e-levy came into pass up till now. And government was able to raise 60 million. Therein lied my concern. My concern was, how does a government set out to deliver a tax in this modern era? A tax that is electronic, calculated by mobile phone. So you know that transactions on mobile money was 100 billion, was 99 billion. And so if you are taxing 1%, 1.5% it was, wasn't it? 1.5% of it, this is what you're going to get. So you can make those projections very easily. So yesterday when I went to speak to people at Ministry of Finance, my concern to them was, how did you get your projections so wrong? What happened? I mean, should we have something to say about Ministry of Finance and Statistical Service in terms of the seriousness with which they approach e-levy, because the projections clearly turned out to be wrong. You cannot project 600 million and end up at 10%. But they explained to me why, and they seem to be to understand why what happened. Let me share some of it with you. And we are coming all the way to the IMF decision. Don't worry. It's a short presentation, but by the time we finish, you would have understood everything. You know that we always bring you the best. And just to reiterate that everything we'll say here is absolutely true. And you can take that for granted, because we have done a lot of work since Friday on this one. So you project 600 million and then you end up at 60 million. There has to be something. There has to be an answer to the question. Why are you projecting 600 and end up at 60? Okay, let's move on and see what happened. So we asked the question, what happened? How did the Ministry of Finance and the Statistical Service get the projection of revenue, potential revenue from e-levy so wrong that at this stage the revenues could not support the argument, and then there had to be a compelling reason why you need an IMF policy supervision? But let's go on. So what happened? Now, there were exemptions. So in the debates in Parliament, and I'll come back to the Haruna Idrisu conversation much later. In the debate in Parliament, the tax was presented to the Parliament in November. Some people, especially some people even within the NPP, were concerned that there had not been enough education, then there had not been enough push on the PR side to tell people, there had not been sufficient communication across the country, within MPs, within constituencies, before you introduce such a major tax. And it happened to VAT. Remember, after the 1995 demonstration, Dr. Kwesi Bocho and others went around the country to sort of get people involved. That had not happened. And some MPP communicators that I spoke to were explaining, because over the period, I spoke to MPP communicators, I spoke to NDC people who were quite happy with it, but I just wanted to get the sense of what the key political actors are thinking about this. And some MPP people felt that at the beginning of e-levy in November, there should have been more education. There should have been a lot more push, a lot more pressing of flesh into the society, to the people. All the things that Ken Ofori-Atta did after November, going around the country with the information minister, they believe should have happened before the bill was actually put in the budget and laid before Parliament. So because of that, the Ministry of Finance, in its effort to get e-levy launched, succumbed to the minorities' conversations about exemptions. So many exemptions were introduced. At the beginning, the exemption was just for below 100 cedis. Now, several exemptions were introduced. The major exemption that was introduced, about which there had been significant circumvention, was the allowance of vendors to be able to send money without charging them e-levy, because the point was made that these vendors are not very rich people. A lot of them are young people who can't find jobs, and this is a makeshift job they are doing. If you're going to tax them, then you're really killing the process. So these exemptions were then put in the tax. Okay, so Ministry of Finance had its own exemptions tax and had its own calculation. The 600 million was actually occasioned by a delay from November to sometime in May, June. Otherwise, it would have been reading $1 billion. So their projection of 600 did not include some of those exemptions. And that's what they told me yesterday. Okay, now let's come to the circumvention. So what did the circumvention do? Customers, you and I, mobile money customers, all of us, were exploiting the exemptions of vendors. So if I wanted to send 1,000 cedis, and I know that 100 cedis is exempted, I give the 1,000 cedi cash to the vendor, and the vendor sends it to 10 different people, that's not captured by mobile money. So a vendor can send to 100 people a day, it's not captured by mobile money. If you multiply that by 5,000, 10,000 vendors, you see how much of the transaction that because of the exemptions has gone out of the mobile money bracket. So I asked them that, what are you going to do about this? And they sort of hinted that they'll be looking at it, they'll be discussing with the telcos, and then it will come probably in the media review. If it's too soon, it will come in the November budget, where they are going back to Parliament to go and streamline some of these exemptions, and especially the circumventions. They're going to have to deal with it so that vendors will now be able to, for instance, send 3 transactions in a day or 3 transactions before midday without e-levy. The 4th one will attract e-levy, so that you sort of discourage people from going to vendors and say, vendor, here is the money, send it for me piece by piece by piece between now and afternoon, and then I don't pay mobile money. The other thing we found out was that the banking halls are getting choked. Why are the banking halls getting choked? Because a lot of these workers, those who work in restaurants, those who work on construction sites, they work for foreign companies. You have 600 workers in one goal, you have 700 workers here, 300 workers here. All of those people were paid by mobile money. And that was great because the technology was available. That is technology enabling people to work, okay? But with the e-levy, these people, these companies who are paying these people have now resorted to giving them checks. So they take their checkbook, which they had, nobody was dealing with checkbook for a long time, but suddenly checkbooks came back into fashion. So they take their checkbooks and then they write their check on it and then they give it to the guy. What it means is that the guy has to go to the bank, you know, which he wouldn't have needed to do before. And so the banking halls are getting choked. If you like, you can check tomorrow. And if you check at the end of June, anyone who went to the banking halls at the end of June when people were looking for salaries and salaries had come, you will see that the banking halls were choked. That was the story 5 years ago. Now it's come back because people are just dodging the e-levy. I don't know whether that's fair or that's unfair, but it's something that you need to look at yourself and then deal with it. So my concern, primary concern, was to the Ministry of Finance. Well, not so much that you've gone to IMF, but this e-levy that you had put a lot of hope and interest and expectations on, how did your own e-levy fail so abysmally that you were not able to forecast that the e-levy was going to fail? That was my concern. And then they told me that these are the things that have happened and that is a new tax, and when the tax is introduced, they look for the loopholes and they plug it. So it's going through the same cycle that every new tax goes through, and they believe that e-levy will bounce back. So that was the end of the e-levy conversation with them. That was my fundamental problem with the e-levy. Okay, let's now move to the next most important thing. So I asked them, what circumstances compelled the decision of the government to go to the IMF? All right. So you look at the e-levy, and I'm getting into the more controversial part as we build up now. We've just done 10 minutes. We'll finish very soon. What circumstances compelled the decision of the government to go to the IMF? And then they told me an interesting story. Now, they said one of the first things that happened, which has precipitated this IMF issue, is what I've put on the screen. The downgrade by rating agency. So this is Ghana, regular Ghana, not downgraded, B plus Ghana. And then here you have small Ghana, downgraded, D minus, almost to C, something like that. The downgrade of these agencies reduced the government or completely eroded the government's ability to borrow. Why did the ratings downgrade the government? Well, first of all, we don't have any control over the ratings. You heard that President Akufo-Addo, when he was in South Africa also, he was critical of Moody's and all of these downgrading agencies because he was aware that these downgrading agencies and the downgrading announcements that they are making about various countries was going to occasion an erosion of confidence of investors that are already even doing business with you. So government was concerned about this, but they believe that somehow, because of the relationship they have with these people, they will still be able to raise money. So they were thinking about raising 2 billion, 3 billion from the same lending market that they always go to. They knew that they had been downgraded, but they found out that the downgrading was actually going to be quite hurtful, because these agencies eventually then came back to the government and told the government that, listen, Ghana government, we are happy to give you the money. However, we think that if you could get an IMF policy supervision, it will be easier for us to give you the money. So what we learned from the Ministry of Finance yesterday was that they are going to the IMF. It's not so much to take money from the IMF.
They are going to the IMF because of the circumstances so that they can get a policy supervision, and then they will be attractive to the lenders who have been lending money to them already anyway, so they can borrow the money. So we call that a glimmer of hope. So the glimmer of hope for the people at Ministry of Finance is that when we go to IMF and we work with the IMF, especially with their policy supervision for our balance of payments to sort of fix itself. Yes, they'll take some money from the IMF, but the main money they want to take is to take it from outside the IMF, to take it from the world. But that will be enhanced because you have been downgraded. That will be enhanced by an IMF program. So that's really what compelled the government to go to the IMF situation. Now, the question about policy mismanagement and economic mismanagement. And I've been dealing with it for a very long time. Economic and policy mismanagement relating to the reason why government of Ghana goes to the IMF. So let's take it slowly and let me walk you through my view of what we have found about this policy mismanagement, because it's very complicated for me. And it's about, that's why we call it the question about mismanagement. So the question we want to ask is that, has the government of Ghana today succumbed to IMF because of mismanagement? Because the government of the NPP had accused the government of the NDC that they had mismanaged the economy. That's the reason why they've gone to the IMF. And that's why this conversation that's beginning to annoy people about which IMF is better and which one is worse, and it's beginning to annoy people. And I can understand why. Nonetheless, we still have to drill through the facts and understand it, because we are building a society, and we are building a society that must make a choice. That's the important thing. Democracy is about choice making. So whatever we say, we must go to the table with a choice. We have to make a choice. And so in making a choice, we have to understand that if our two leading political parties take a step, we should evaluate that step even if the step looks identical. And I think that some of my viewers will agree with me. I'm saying that if the two political parties have taken the same step, historically, in terms of economic recovery, we will still have to interrogate and evaluate the steps that each of them have taken, even if the steps are identical. So we did some hard work on answering the question about economic mismanagement, and I don't find it. I really can't find it, and I'm waiting to be convinced that this IMF issue has been as a result of economic management. Why do I say that? Let's move on. Back to the touch screen. Okay, number one. These are the things that have happened since 2017. And I'm leading this up to the 2020 elections. And I'll show you the main issues we have picked up. Not just picked up, we researched on it. So you can also do the research. So go on the internet if you like. Put together all the videos or most of the videos of election 2020 and look at the campaign themes of election 2020. And you will be able to draw down the analysis that we are making. It's very simple. It's not complicated. It will just take a bit of your time. But if you don't have the time, you can listen to us. Trust us that we are telling you the truth. Nothing is untrue. All right. So the government of the NPP in 2017 inherited the economy from President Mahama. Okay. They told us during the campaign that the economy was not good. When they took office, they told us that the economy was not good. They told us certain things, factual things like agriculture had been growing at -%. That is below zero. They told us that the economic growth had been 3.4 GDP as at that time. What was the problem? They told us that the doomsday was as a result of the government mismanaging and not able to find money to pay for their gas. Okay, all right. Now, we can trace that historically if we have to be fair to the Mahama administration, because the government was picked up from J. Ekufuor in 2008, what looked like a very, very healthy economy. It had a bit of issues in the campaign of 2008 and the expenditure thereon. However, from 2009, the economy was inherited by Dr. Dufour, and he quickly went into single-digit inflation for the longest time, I think. So that economy that was inherited from J. Ekufuor was a healthy economy. Professor Mills took it up. It was okay. It got a bit worse, but it was okay until 2012. And then President Mahama took it up. And then you can compare all of that to the global situation. You can make your own analysis about that. So historically, we look at how President Mahama got into difficulty, and he got into genuine difficulties. But if you look at how he got into difficulty, and you can't find it, something external, something of a nature of a force majeure, then you will limit it to economic mismanagement. I think that's quite straightforward. If a government rules for 8 years, 6 years, 3 years, 4 years, and the government says, I have economic difficulty, and we cannot trace and put our finger on something external, something force majeure, something out of the control, beyond the control of the government, to say that this is why you have engage in economic mismanagement. And because we live in a global world, when something is happening to Nigeria, it will happen to Ghana if it's economic. It's happening to South Africa, it will happen to Kenya because it is geopolitical. Okay? So that's quite simple. I'm not going to, what do I say? I'm not going to pass judgment. But you can pass judgment yourself. So you look at President Mahama's historical economic situation, and you have to be able to find the external thing before you can conclude that this was not economic mismanagement. If you look at the government of President Akufo-Addo, it's the same thing. You have to look at the government activity fairly and squarely, and if you can't find the external, then you are sure that this is economic management. But if you say it's economic management without being able to say that this was internal, and without them defending themselves, being able to point to something external, something force majeure, something beyond their control, then if you can't find those things, something beyond your control, something force majeure, then I will conclude that it is pure economic management if you can't understand it. Okay, so now let's move on. And I'm talking about the government of today. So they picked up the economy from 2017, okay? 3.4, negative agriculture, IMF program. We have to remember that government was already in an IMF program when they took over. And then 3.4 growth of economy, agriculture was going negative. Let's look at the things that factually happened. There's nothing here that's not true. Okay, so let's take it one after the other. Financial sector health was done, correct. That is the banking reform. It was done, it cost money. Free SHS was done, correct. This is an economy that's growing at 3.4. All the problems in there, they take it over at this rate. Free SHS was done, correct. Teacher training allowances was restored, correct. Nursing training allowances was restored, correct. Zongo Development Fund was established, correct. All of this is money, by the way. Okay. Recruited, before they came in, the IMF program that was in place had determined that government cannot recruit people. So it was an IMF program. It's not that Setekpe and John Mahama didn't want to recruit. They went into an IMF program. They had to go. That said you cannot recruit. Now let's see what happened after 2017. Recruited nurses, doctors, and other health workers, teachers, police officers, and many others. At least 750,000 public sector workers were recruited. That's between 2017 and 2019. Almost 1 million. Almost 1 million people who did not have employment before, but who were ready and available in Ghana, in their homes, in their villages, on the streets. Almost 1 million people who did not have jobs had been recruited by the public sector through the platform of either they were nurses, they were doctors, they were healthcare workers, they were teachers, they were police officers, and others, immigration officers and all of that. 750,000 people have been recruited. And then one district, one factory was done. Okay, one district, one factory becomes a conversation about, are you sure it's a district, are you sure it's a factory? Okay, you can have that conversation. But we cannot deny at least one. A Kumfi factory, the juice factory, was not there. In 2016, it was not there. The land was bare. It has been done. Today, they are exporting to America and the United Kingdom. A Kumfi pineapple juice is here. If there's no factory at all, that one, you can't deny it. That was not done in the 8 years of the period. In Sawam country, it was done. It was not successful. And I'm saying Sawam country because they are both in the central region. In fact, they are near each other. In Sawam country, it was not successful. The money was wasted. Money has to be spent again. Government money was spent on the Kumfi factory, and it is sitting there, it's working, and it's solving people's problems. So the NPP will say they have done 70-something factories. NDC will say it's not 70, it's 20. I don't know. But this one, you cannot deny it, okay? All right, so one district, one factory was done. And then the national ID card was rolled out. How many years have we been trying to roll out national ID card? Since Professor Dumont's time, way back. Professor Dumont was one of the leaders of the national ID card, way back. That's when we started rolling national ID card. No money, no money, no money. Every day there was no money. Today, the national ID card has been done. A lot of people watching me now have a national ID card. That was not there. It is now here. It's not food in our pockets. It's not money in our pockets. It's not food in our stomach. It's not money in our pocket. But it is a development paradigm that is necessary for us to achieve what we want to achieve as a nation. And for us to get to middle income nation, we need national identification system that works. And it costs money. Yes, it does. So that has been done. I'm trying to answer the question, has this IMF been occasioned by economic mismanagement? And I'm answering the question in the negative because that's my conclusion, and I'm leading you to that conclusion. But you can contradict it. If you have the counterfactual, let's hear you. But these are the facts. that has led me to the conclusion that this cannot be economic mismanagement. Let's go on. Okay, national ID card has been done. Automobile industries established with VW and Toyota, all of us applauded. When one day we saw President Kagame of Uganda opening a factory, President Kagame of Rwanda, opening a factory in Kigali, the capital, where VWs had been manufactured. All of us were excited. We didn't know that 1 year later, Ghana will also open. That one too, it was not there. Now it is there. Is it providing employment for people? Answer the question yourself. Is it providing cars that are good, that are cheaper than importing? Answer the question yourself. Is it reducing somehow our balance of payment because you don't need to take dollar to go and import a car, VW from Germany, you can get it in Ghana? Answer the question yourself. That was not there. Now it is there. Factual. Okay, let's move on. Digital address system. Some people say that they still don't have digital addresses, but that has started. That has not rolled out as fast as the ID card and as penetrating as the ID card, but it has started. Digital address system. Again, it's not food in our stomach. It's not food on our table. It's not money in our pocket, but it is a sine qua non for the development of society. And it costs money. So that one too has been done. You see, as Bob Marley said, an angry man, a hungry man is an angry man. When I'm hungry and I'm angry, everybody is angry. So in these economic times, all of us are angry, and that's understandable. However, these facts are true. They are very, 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 very true, and we can't do anything away. We can't take it away from the situation. That is factual, and it has an impact on what's happening now. And I'm still going to answer the question: has this been occasioned by economic mismanagement? Okay, all right. Digital address system has been done. Passport application digitized. Energy sector debt. Now that's the last one. Here's a government that's inherited energy sector debt of 1 billion take or pay. This has been said forever. The NDC have never been able to say it's not true. I'm not saying it's the NDC's fault. They say that every contract is take or pay, and they had done so and they had to do it. But it is still to be acknowledged that a government that inherited the 2017 economy also inherited finding 1 billion United States dollars in 17, 18, and 19 to pay to people who had given us power that we didn't need at the time. We have needed the power now. We've taken some of it, as we've been hearing. A Mary plant has come full stream. It's good that it came, so it's being used, it's being transferred to Kumasi. All of that is correct. But that doesn't take away the fact that the government that inherited the economy in 2017 inherited this bill, 1 billion United States. Do you know what 1 billion can do? So if we pay 2 billion to that, do you know what that 2 billion can do? Now, all of that was added to the national budget. All of these things were added to the national budget. And on top of that, we were still under an IMF program. Okay. And then here we are. Mobile money interoperability between telcos as well as between telcos and banks has been achieved. And it costs money. And we all know how much it was going to cost. In 2015, 2016, the Septem contract that went on arbitration, we know how much it was going to cost, and we know how much it ended up costing the government. So that also has been done. Again, it is not food, and it is not money in our pockets. And we need food. I need food. You need food. We need petrol prices to be down, and the government must work on that. We need petrol prices to be down. We need the foodstuffs at the market to be cheaper. But that doesn't take away from the fact that these are facts that have affected the economy, and these things have been done. We're still leading to the question of, has the government mismanaged the economy, for which reason we have to go to IMF? Because there are loud voices on social media who are insisting that the government has mismanaged the economy, but they don't even say why. We have found out that from what we see, it will not appear to be a reasonable conclusion to draw that this government has mismanaged the economy since 2017. We are driving up to that. Okay. Anglo Gold Ashanti has been revived. The Anglo Gold Ashanti was closed down. What was the matter? It was a matter of money. It was a matter of money. So the mine was closed down. The government put in the money. The mine has been opened. It was closed down. Now it's open. What does opening the mine mean? People are working in the mine. People who lost their jobs are back at work in the mine in Ghana. Okay? Ghana Post has been revived, and that's a small one because Oboa has been doing a fantastic work over there. So since 2021, we are seeing a lot of improvement in Ghana Post. Hopefully, they will generate the revenue. And then for good measure, let's talk about airports. Kumasi International Airport has been completed. Tamale International Airport is being completed. Sunyani Airport is being completed and will be reopened. All of that cost money. It was not being done, completed, because there was no money. Money has been found and put in these things, and so the airport is going to work. So Kumasi International Airport works, Tamale International Airport works. You can then derive a multiplier business effect for it to work. And again, it is not food on our table, and it may not be money in our pocket. It may not reduce the petrol price at the pump. It may not yet reduce the food prices, but it is factual, it's gone into the economy, and it should lead us into the analysis of whether our economy is being mismanaged or not. Ghana Publishing Company has also been revived. Now look at this. 300 national ambulances have been provided. 300 national ambulances have been provided. Again, it was not there. Since 2017, it is there. Ambulance was, every constituency didn't have an ambulance. Now you go abroad and people are talking about ambulance. We can also share the ambulance experience. When we were growing up, we didn't understand what an ambulance was. We just see military, the car doing, and you can't even tell what's an ambulance. And we didn't know that. The generation of today, if they travel to another country, Cote d'Ivoire, Nigeria, South Africa, and they talk about ambulance, they will tell you, oh, that in Ghana, every constituency has an ambulance. We couldn't say that. You couldn't say that. Today, we can say that. It is not food on our table, it's not money in our pocket, but it is essential for a modern society that thinks about its people. It is essential for a government that doesn't just sit at Jubilee House and converse, but a government that thinks about its people to roll out social interest and social things that people can benefit from. Social interventions, they call it. To create the ambulance conversation has started during Professor Mills. A bit of it was done during J. Kufuor's time. A few ambulances came, started during Professor Mills, went on to John Mahama. It was not done. Now, it has been done. It is there. So, yes, so it's not food, but it's something. All right. Now, we looked at this situation about this economic mismanagement thing again, and I've come to the conclusion of the data. Now, I thought we should do one more thing, and because I'm political, I said, okay, let's go to 2020 elections, and let's try and understand the issues that came up for 2020 election. It will let us be able to call out people who are telling us today that the economy is bad, and that it has been, the economy is bad, yes, but has it been mismanaged? That's the question we are asking. So we went to election 2020's issues, the issues that formed election 2020. And here they are. You can find them as well. Here they are. Okay. So on education, it was a big story in 2020. The NPP said they had done policy successfully implemented as free SHS from the first year of assumption in office. Good performance of free SHS WASI candidates. Double track system gradually fades away. That's what the NPP were saying in the campaign about education. President Mahama and the NDC said, review free SHS is important. Waiver of school fees of students of tertiary education in 2021 and 2022. That's what the NDC were promising in the 2020 campaign. As far as education was concerned, they said they will waive school fees of students of tertiary education in 2021 and 2022. Okay, somehow, maybe the people didn't believe it, and that's how the elections ended. Let's move on 2020 elections. Corruption. On corruption, President Akufo-Addo was touting his credentials for establishing the office of the special prosecutor. This was in 2020 election. And then on the same corruption, President Mahama was talking about the resignation from office of Martin Amidu as special prosecutor, indicating that Martin Amidu that they had selected to be special prosecutor, he himself felt that the people were corrupt, so he left. We've dealt with Martin Amidu already. President Akufo-Addo said he had set up the office of special prosecution. That's on corruption. Let's move on. On infrastructure, President Akufo-Addo talked about construction of roads and then the Agenda 111 district hospitals, which people are still talking about within the IMF context. President Mahama said, NDC believes it has a better record in infrastructure, and NDC touted its infrastructure record significantly in the 2020 elections. I'm going on to show you why I'm saying that this current situation cannot be as a result of economic management. Okay. On health, better management of COVID-19 pandemic compared to many other nations. President Akufo-Addo touted himself on that one, and that one, there's no question about it. You can be political about it, but there's no question about it. The whole world noticed that Ghana was behaving like a European country. Part of the reason why Ghana is suffering today is that Ghana was behaving like a European country because the people at the helm of affairs were thinking about the people. That's why they said you should have free water. That's why they said you should have free electricity. That happens in America and the United Kingdom. It doesn't happen in Umofia, if you like. It doesn't happen there. It doesn't happen in those places. It happens in America and the United Kingdom. It is only Ghana an African country that decided that our people are important. And we all remember what the president said. I know how to bring the economy back. I don't know how to raise people from the dead. So only Ghana said you can have free water. Even African countries who were better placed than Ghana did not offer that because it was very scary to offer that as a third world country unless you had this pension for people. It is only then that you can offer that. Otherwise, you won't offer it. If you're doing calculation on the paper, nobody's going to do free water. Stay at home, don't come to work. In America, they are reducing people's salaries. Public workers, public sector workers, they are reducing their salaries. But in America, they give them free water, free electricity. In Ghana, we did. And that also is a cost. So President Akufo-Addo was touting his credentials during the election that he had had a better management of COVID-19. President Mahama touted building the hospitals which became useful under COVID-19, which is also correct. That's also correct because the hospitals that were used for COVID-19 were built by President Mahama and built in President Mahama's time. The University of Ghana Hospital, which became a center, the Ghana East Hospital in Accra, which became a center for it, they were built by President, the Rich Hospital, yes. So President Akufo-Addo said, I've managed COVID-19 better because I've been thinking about people and I spend the money on people. And President Mahama said, yes, I built the hospitals that you have used. Both of them are correct. All right, let's move on. Transport. President Akufo-Addo said he's making Ghana a hub for the assembling of vehicles and boosting transportation sector. President Mahama said he was going to legalize Okada. And so President Akufo-Addo was touting his credentials in VW and Nissan and Toyota coming in. President Mahama said he's going to legalize Okada. That was the conversation on transport. Okay, on economy. This is the big story. So if this economy has been mismanaged, 2020 is just 2 years ago. That's when the elections occurred. Go back and check. The economy was not part of the NDC's forward campaign in 2020. It was not. So if the economy had been badly managed by 2020, that would have been the opposition's main take into the election. When we checked, the opposition's main take into the election in 2020 was not the economy. So when they say this economy has been badly managed, we had an election 2 years ago. That was an opportunity for the NDC to come back to power. If economy was bad, people were hungry, this and that, that would have been the opposition's clarion call that this economy has been badly managed. They didn't say that in 2020. It was not part of the election campaign, and you can check. On economy, President Akufo-Addo talked about better management of Ghana's economy as the records show from 17 to 19. He was very strong about that. GDP growth inherited at 3.4, comes to 8, comes to 7. President Akufo-Addo was buoyant about the situation of the economy in 2020. He was on the campaign. And he also said he has sustained the economy under a global pandemic. And he said the provision of good incentives for frontline health workers, free water and electricity to households during the pandemic. That's what he said. He was buoyant about this. President Mahama did not push much on the economy. And the NDC did not make the economy a key agenda. So how then do you come and tell me that at this stage it is economic mismanagement? If it's economic mismanagement, you would have touted it in 2020. So if in 2021, post-COVID, things happen around the world, everywhere is going under, and then the government has a difficulty, you can't say that's economic management. I'm not going to say anything about IMF of 2014, 2015. You can make your own decision on that. But I'm dealing with this particular one because as I started, my concern was, why did they misforecast e-levy? And I have gone to talk to them about that. But if you look at the thing, you listen to this matter well, that it is economic mismanagement, the data does not support that conclusion. We can all talk on social media. That's okay. It's great. It's building society. Social media is fantastic. Everybody can say what they want. But if you want to drill down the numbers, you will come to the conclusion that this is not economic management. Otherwise, in 2020, it would have featured in the opposition's campaign. It didn't feature. Other things were featuring, not on the economy. Okay, let me run through it. All right. Now, the last thing I want to say. This ecstatic frenzy that occurred after the announcement, and people were very excited that Ghana is going to the IMF. I looked at it quietly. I listened to Newsfile on Saturday. Professor Bob Payne, he made very interesting points. I really respect the guy's brain. I've been listening to him, and he made very interesting points. See, his analysis, he was coming from the strength of the analysis, and he talked about why the IMF decision should have been taken earlier, because in 2021, the economy was healthier than it is. Of course, because the pandemic had not eaten us away at that time as much as it has now, coupled with Russia-Ukraine war and the shortage of fuel. In some countries, they don't have fuel. We have fuel, but it's too expensive for all of us. So Professor Bobby made those points, and I like that. But there were people who were dancing in studios that Ghana has announced an IMF decision. It reminded me of the old Ghanaian concern that this pull him down attitude. So if you are a healthy, independent economy, this is how you are. This is how you look like. If you're under IMF management, this is the same Ghana. This is how you look like. Now, people were happy that, okay, we are all at the bottom. You said that we were at the bottom because we went to IMF. You too, you will come to the bottom. We will all be at the bottom. And that kind of reminds me of the Archbishop's statements. Like, we are all coming, we are all at the bottom. People were excited. Aha! They said we don't know what to do. So we went to IMF. Aha! They too, we are dancing. I was shocked that people don't say that, but you've gone to IMF. Come and explain why you've gone to IMF. And this IMF, what does it mean? What are the details? When are we getting out of it? And the opposition have a document and say that government is going to IMF because of this and that and that. And we are advising them that this is the decision they should take. If we were in power, this is what we would do to get out of the IMF. If we were in power, this is what we would do. No, they are just excited that, oh, we are happy. We were down there. They too, they are coming down. They said they are clever. They said 2017, 2016, and 2017, 2018, 2019, they were doing it. Now COVID has taught them a lesson. They are also coming down. Is that something to say? When people say that, do you think they like the country? I've stood here before and talked about the Solomon baby. When they said, cut the baby, because we don't care, it's not our baby, cut it into pieces. And the other woman said, even though I know it's my baby, don't cut the baby, keep the baby. These are people who are excited. Yeah, the lowest ebb is for a country to mismanage its economy and go to IMF. And this thing was hanging over our heads. Oh, today they've gone to IMF. Yeah, that is good. They've gone. Aha. But if you look at the data, it's completely different. These are people who inherited this, added, and then had the pandemic, sorted it out. That's not very simple. That's not very, very simple. Anyway, so I saw that and I wanted to comment on it. Now, this is the final one. Have a look at this. Turkey's annual inflation soars to almost 79%, hitting highest levels in 24 years. CNBC reports. Put it on the screen so they can look at it well. Turkey's annual inflation, it soared to almost 79%, hitting highest levels in 24 years. Now, Turkey is not a badly governed country. We all know Turkey. People these days go to Turkey to trade. In fact, Turkey is almost competing with Dubai for traders who go and buy things and all the woodworks and all of that. Turkey is almost growing into a developed country. But that's the record of Turkey because of the circumstances of the world. And Turkey is talking about highest in 24 years. In Europe and America, they are talking about the highest cost of living standard in 40 years. So that's happening everywhere. We are all hungry, and therefore we are angry, and we deserve to be angry. And when we elect a government, they are supposed to solve our problems. And so the government has to be under pressure to solve our problems. I think that is correct. But these are the facts. These are the real facts. And I've been doing a lot of time, so I will wrap it up here and then talk about the other matter. And then Yabuafo is in the studio to talk. So that's my two persuasive opinion. I'm sure the text messages are coming. Let me take a short commercial break right now, and then we come back, and then we deal with the rest, and then Yabuafo will come to the studio to talk to us. Okay, a short break right now. We're on a short break.
What we are doing right now, we're not going anywhere.
We are
Because
not.
watch this, I'm telling you, what we are doing right now, I want you to stand. Let me show you something. Just stand. If I'm in opposition, just face this way. If I'm in opposition and you are in office, I hold your leg like that. Try to move.
Yeah.
Try to move.
I cannot move.
Try to do something. You are not going anywhere.
Yeah.
I will make sure I circumvent you and sabotage you until you leave office.
Wow.
And when you also come,
Same thing.
I will also do the same to you. So I don't wish you well, you don't wish me well. So the nation is bleeding. The nation is bleeding.
We don't find an economic problem and say that let us go to IMF. Why? Where is that coming from? What, is that Kwame Nkrumah's Ghana? That the black man is capable of managing his own affairs. Have we forgotten that? Nkrumah said the black man is capable. He said, let us do the independence. And let us show the world that after all, the black man is capable of managing his own affairs. 50, 65 years later, the black man has a problem. He says, let's go to the IMF. Why? Why can't we have a problem, economic problem, and make a determination that this economic problem, we can do this?
What we are doing right now, we are not going anywhere. Because watch this, I'm telling you, what we are doing right now, I want you to stand. Let me show you something. Just stand. If I'm in opposition, just face this way. If I'm in opposition and you are in office, I hold your leg like that. Try.
Okay, welcome back to the show. The comments are coming in thick and fast. Okay, so we put up another flyer, and that's what I'm going to deal with it right now, and then we go over to Yabuafo. Ghanaians of middle class level, we're getting very angry with this IMF comparison. Your IMF is better than my IMF and all that. So we can understand that. These are not times to be throwing rhetoric at citizens. No, that's not good. These are times when citizens are looking for food. They're looking to balance their own budget. They're looking to reduce the basket of goods that come into their home and how inflation is just rising and rising. So that's what the government must focus on. And I'm delighted that the government is insisting on focusing on that, focusing on delivering the people out of this whole IMF situation. And today letters have come out from the Ministry of Finance that indicate that they are already making projections as to when they leave the IMF. Tomorrow is the beginning of the meetings. But I looked at it and I said, people are not interested in this IMF and IMF thing. What do we do to build a society? How do we build a society? And it struck me because the Archbishop had told me about the way we are going, and we have been talking about winner takes all for the longest time. We have been looking for constitutional amendment that changes the winner takes all. Some people are not listening to us, a lot of people are listening to us, and we'll go on with the crusade. But when I heard this tape from the minority leader, you cannot blame minority leader really, you can't blame him. But when I heard the tape from him, it told me something about what we need to do as a country, away from NPP, NDC conversation, away from IMF. Let's look at it. So this is a tape that we'll play the tape for you. So minority leader was talking to some NDC people who I think were asking for a bit more activity and action from the minority in parliament. And these are the words he used. Okay, so here it is. Minority leader Haruna Idrisu has intimated that NDC MPs in parliament deliberately frustrated and blocked the Akufo-Addo administration from achieving its revenue targets. Okay, so that's the first paragraph. Is politics not about a competition of ideas? That's what we were told. The politics about a competition of ideas. This is your idea, my idea is better. I sell the idea to the people, they elect me. I show them that my idea was better, they give me a second term. I show them my idea is better, they give me a third term. They get tired with me, they come back to you, and then they listen to you if you're good. If they listen to you and you're not good, then you will stay in opposition for a long time. Like Margaret Thatcher, she ruled Britain from 1978 up to 1992. Like the Republican Party in America, they ruled the United States from 1980 up to 1992.
because every time they went to the American people, their solutions and projections and prognosis sounded better to the American people than the Democrats. And the American people were going to continue to vote for them. So they voted for the Republicans 3 terms, 2 terms Reagan, 1 term Bush. They voted for them like that. And Bush was Reagan's vice president, by the way. So they voted for Reagan 2 terms and voted for Bush. They voted for Margaret Thatcher for 10 years. They voted for Tony Blair for 10 years. Because that's how people are. We want to listen. So we believe that politics is about competition of ideas. But read the first paragraph again. Minority Leader Haruna Idrisu has intimated that the NDC MPs in Parliament deliberately frustrated and blocked the Akufo-Addo administration from achieving its revenue target. In a clandestine meeting held with some disgruntled supporters of the opposition party, Haruna Idrisu, in an audio, implored the supporters of the NDC to rather commend them for putting impediments in the way of Akufo-Addo's administration in its revenue-generating efforts, including e-levy. This minority, this is quoting Haruna Idrisu. He says, the Honorable Haruna Idrisu, minority leader. He says, this minority succeeded in reducing e-levy from 1.75 to 1.50. I mean, when they came, their intention was 1.75. There were many other activities that would have been captured by e-levy. They have abandoned it, thanks to the opposition and our constructive criticism of the policy in order to be able to improve it, including remittances, he said. He continued, emphasizing that blocking government from achieving its revenue targets, leading to a loss of half of the revenue expected from e-levy, is an achievement that the minority MPs must be commended for. Quote him again, even more importantly, government has already lost half-year revenue of whatever it anticipated from e-levy. That can only be attributed to the purpose and tenacity of the minority group in Parliament. You may be dissatisfied with us. We just took a legal step which probably may not satisfy you. Okay. This audio, which has since gone viral, is a testament to the fact that the minority stiff opposition to the passage of e-levy bill was not without malice. It was a well-planned plot to ensure that government was denied the needed resources to undertake its planned projects and execute its numerous programs. This, in the long run, goes a long way to affecting the development paradigm of the country, as same loudly sends out the message that the NDC does not have the well-being. Well, I mean, that's the writer's view of that. It says the NDC does not have the well-being of Ghanaians. That's not our view. We don't think so. But the writer says so. It's not our view. Okay. All right. Let's move on there. So that's it. We're going to play you the tape of Haruna Idrisu. But before then, let me remind you of what the Archbishop told me 3 years ago. Something I thought had not happened here. Something I thought was far-fetched. Here is the Archbishop.
What we are doing right now, we are not going anywhere. Because watch this, I'm telling you, what we are doing right now, I want you to stand. Let me show you something. Just stand. If I'm in opposition, just face this way. If I'm in opposition and you are in office, I hold your leg like that. Try to move.
Yeah.
Try to move.
I cannot move.
Try to do something. You are not going anywhere.
Yeah.
I will make sure I circumvent you and sabotage you until you leave office.
Wow.
And when you also come,
same thing.
I will also do the same to you. So I don't wish you well, you don't wish me well. So the nation is bleeding. The nation is bleeding.
When the Archbishop told me that, I thought it's far-fetched. But if you read some of the things that are here, and you cannot blame Idris Haruna for it, he's doing his work. That is what has become the work of the opposition, each opposition, from what the Archbishop says. That's what seems to have become the work. So that derailing a government policy is not the same as competing on ideas intellectually, which is what government is supposed to do. Your idea, my idea. We compete intellectually. I'm better than you. You're better than me. We go to the people and then they decide. We don't say that, let me check what you are doing and lay ambush and make sure I destroy what you want to do. You've gone to dream up a policy. Okay, you need the numbers. We will see. I'll destroy it. And if the speaker tries to vote and go and say, I'll come and take the chair and beat him up. That's what we're doing. That's really what we're doing. And that's what is the story, part of the story of e-levy. Very, very sad. Let's hear the tape itself. Let's hear Idris Haruna's voice. Let's hear it.
This minority succeeded in reducing e-levy from 1.75 to 1.50. I mean, when they came, the intention was 1.75. There were many other activities that would have been captured by e-levy. They've abandoned it thanks to the opposition and our constructive criticisms of the policy in order to be able to improve it, including remittances. And even more importantly, government have already lost half-year revenue of whatever it anticipated from e-levy. That can only be attributed to purpose and tenacity of a minority group in parliament. You may be dissatisfied with us. We just took a legal step.
I'm quite interested in what the NDC supporters were dissatisfied with, because in the tape, the Honorable Minority Leader said, you may be dissatisfied with us. So I'm really wondering what they were dissatisfied with. Okay, so let's be careful about this, young people. Let's begin to think through our situation, think through the laws that we have, the constitutional amendments and all of that, and decide on how we can remove this kind of politics from our political system. Because the way it is, sometimes it is compelled. It's not so much that the person wants to do that, but it's compelled, because you have a winner takes all. Then you have a hung parliament, and then they go and take the chair because they want to make sure that the government doesn't succeed. If the government succeeds because the government has generated good ideas, they will lose the election. It's clear, everybody knows that. If you allow the government to succeed because they have a better idea, you will lose the election. So the call is not that that's the government's good idea. Let's also get a good idea. Good idea makes the society better. That's why Archbishop said the country is bleeding. Those who are not interested in ideas, that is e-levy is your idea. I have a better idea. And sell it to Ghanaians. That he's charging you e-levy. And look, this is what I will do. Instead of e-levy, I will do X, Y, Z. I will still raise the revenue. It will be calmer on you. The food prices will not go up. So vote for me. Voting is a competition of ideas. It's not a competition of Kwekwanansi type style of undermining. That's the Kwekwanansi one that we've asked our children to stop listening to. You can still do Kwekwanansi, but present him in a positive light. You see, the way they presented Kwekwanansi in a fraudulent light, defrauding by false pretenses, we don't like that. So that kind of Kwekwanansi thing, it's not great politics, it's bad politics for our society. It is a competition of ideas. And those of you on Facebook, young people, insist that this is a competition of ideas. We don't want you to come and tell us that I threw the chair away, I beat the speaker up so that he couldn't vote. We want you to come and tell us that I heard Ken Ofori-Atta speak, but what he said, I have a better idea. This is what Ofori-Atta said, this is what I'm saying, and I will achieve the same thing better, so you should elect me, and the people would elect you. But this kind of politics. Okay, somebody diagnosed the African problem. A guy on the Guardian website, he diagnosed the African problem. Have a look. It's 2 minutes.
I think that Africa is at a point of opportunity. Africa has no automatic future. Africa is not on autopilot to some gilded age, as a lot of people seem to think. What is being rather prematurely, perhaps you might even say falsely, celebrated as Africa's rise is simply the continent having become a playground for globalization. That's a different thing from a continent rising. So now, where we are, clearly Africa can rise. Nobody's questioning that. But how can it rise? And so the decisions we take today in African countries are what will determine whether in 30, 40 years Africa is closer to where it should be or farther away from it. For example, what are we doing about population growth? What are we doing about jobless growth? If you don't do anything serious about these challenges, 30, 40 years, you'll have a continent whose population may have doubled, but in which you have armies of young people who do not have gainful employment. This could create social problems. If you create jobs faster than population growth, you will not have this problem. If you create skills and human capital that balances out the growth of the population, you will not have this problem, because then you avoid the Malthusian dilemma, in which the more the population grows, the more the strain on the Earth's resources, becomes exacerbated. But if you create the population with the skills, they will produce more with less. They will be able to use high-yielding crop seeds to develop lots more food. And so you have food security over smaller acres of land. So that population increase is not having a negative impact. And that's why, Robert Malthus, the economist who formulated this theory, I say he would die of shock if he were alive today, because Western societies have beaten the dilemma that he so clearly sketched out. But the reason they were able to beat it is because Western societies embraced science and technology and its application through innovation. That's the secret of prosperity, and that's what Africa must engage.
The secrets of prosperity, that's what Africa must engage. We don't just need a population, but we need a population that's controlled and more productivity. How do you do that? The only way to tell people to control population is not to tell them, they will not listen, is to educate them. Because if you educate them, if you educate a young man and educate a young woman, they will naturally be able to control the population. Education is important. Free SHS is very, very important. I'm done. I'm going to the bar to speak to the bar president. Honorable Abuafo, good evening. We won the league. We won the league.
Yes, definitely.
Yes, we did. Nana Amponsa and the team, they won the league.
I don't think Chris Oseyabo wants to hear this.
Chris knows that we won the league. Good evening. Thank you very much for your time. Last week was a big day for you. And the 40th anniversary brought out all kinds of things. Your speech was very highly recommended. We looked at it here. And you were very big on lest we forget it shouldn't happen again. But for young Ghanaians, we are very far away from that. Very, very far away from that. So we thought that the bar president sounding alarmist, this is 40 years ago, this will never happen again, even if he doesn't say it. Why did you is that something that worries you? Is there a trend that you see that worries you, that made you say, lest we forget, we should be sure that this will not happen again?
Yes, Paul, I think that the centerpiece of my speech was on the fact that recently there's a bit of consternation when you hear people yearning for a coup. As akin to the Israelites in slavery who prayed for God's deliverance, but then on the way to the promised land, they wanted to go back to slavery. There's a tendency for people to forget what happened. But the real reason was that when people talk about coups, there's this simplicity that the people who are going to suffer are the politicians. But if you look at the three judges and the retired army officer, they were not political office holders. They were people who were murdered for doing what they do normally. The three of them were members of a constitutionally created judiciary. Major Samakwa was a personnel manager of a state-owned enterprise and carry out a mundane, routine work of discipline or sacking an errant employee left to it. So the point is that I'm the president of the Ghana Bar Association. Somebody doesn't like me. Somebody doesn't like you. You were a professor at the university. There's a student you trailed who's never forgiven you. I mean, everybody can settle scores, and that's what happens with coup d'etats. So when you start thinking that, let me yearn for a coup d'etat because you think that only politicians are going to suffer, that's the error that you fall in. And for me, I made that point that when you have a constitutional system, that within periods, it allows people to either extend or change government mandates. It's far better than any form of military adventurism. And that's why I had to reiterate that point.
So you have been concerned about people talking these days about coup d'etat?
Absolutely. Absolutely, because there's no need for it. The reason why there's no need for it is that every 4 years, Ghanaians have had the opportunity either to extend the mandate of governments or to truncate the mandates of governments. We've had it. We've had changes, and this has been peaceful. So if you have a problem with any government, just wait for election day. Go queue peacefully, cast your vote. If at the end of the day, the chairman of the Electoral Commission tallies the vote and Party A has won power, that's it. It's far better than having some people in uniform shouting, coming to say that, look, we are changing governments. And it doesn't work. It doesn't work. It's never going to work. And it's not going to work for us. So for us, we just want a situation where the Fourth Republic will be the last republic till Judgment Day.
Oh, I see. That's a good one. Fourth Republic, last republic. Even if we amend the Constitution, we'll still be in the Fourth Republic, wouldn't we?
Absolutely.
That will not create a Fifth Republic.
That will not fit a republic.
Okay. Civil society have not been happy with the bar even before you became its president. They say that since Akufo-Addo became president, the bar has gone quiet. This is not the bar that Sinuti Fafa Kunye here led.
this is not the bar that Peter Ajete led. Vociferous bar. This bar is lame duck, slant, sleeping, because they are in bed with their former Greater Accra president, who is now president of Ghana, Nana Akufo-Addo. So they can't say anything about anything Akufo-Addo does.
Oh, you cannot read the book of Lamentations at the time of Hebrews. We are
say that again.
You cannot read the book of Lamentations in the time of Hebrews. You are comparing two different eras. The activism of the bar in a military, under a military rule is totally different from that under constitutional.
No, even under Rawlings, Mills, they complain.
No, you see, I don't think so. And I'll explain something to you. I think the peculiar nature of our political history has created that problem. And it's because the PNDC metamorphosed into a political party. And just like maybe corporate takeover, you take over the assets and liabilities. So a lot of times, because of what the bar did during the PNDC era, the political party that became the natural successor of the PNDC seems to have carried that baggage with it. But then, if you look from 2001, we've had President Kufuor, President Mills, President Mahama, and President Akufo-Addo. The criticism started in President Kufuor's time. It didn't start in President...
that the bar has been quiet.
Quiet. It started around that time. And it's sort of carried over. You remember that our former president, Kwame Tete, even had to come out to think. And from that time, I think from Pauladou Jemfi's time, through Kwame Tete, coming to Nena Megacha, coming down to Tony Folsom and Benson, we have had that criticism. But people should understand that. Listen, the bar essentially would have to look at constitutionalism, human rights abuses, and everything. What is topical these days are political questions. If a government...
A Fix the Country convener is arrested, charges against him don't seem clear, or does the allegation he makes, the bar has nothing to say about that?
No, what I'm trying to say is that if the human rights of an individual is infringed, the bar would clearly come into it.
But he believes that his human rights has been infringed.
But
he's a member of the bar as well.
Well, he's a lawyer. In his particular case, he said he's not a member of the bar, but that's another.
Oh, he said that. Okay,
yes,
sorry.
But I mean, but I think that he's a Ghanaian. Any Ghanaian who the bar, when it comes to human rights infractions, the bar is for every Ghanaian. But the point for me is this: if somebody is arrested, there are constitutionally guarantees for the processes to follow. If those things are being followed, it's difficult for the bar to come in. So, for example, if somebody is arrested, and 48-hour rule, you are sent to court, you are remanded, and there is no breach of any constitutional provision or any statutory provision, it's difficult for the bar to come.
What about the refusal to grant bail? Is it a discretion of a judge that the bar cannot criticize?
No, the point about bail is there are rules governing bail. The fundamental provisions are likelihood to abscond. But the point is judicial discretion. And the point is that, for example, if you are arraigned before court and you are refused bail, and you have lawyers, the next one is to go to the next court, the next higher court, and see if the courts, the judges there or the judge there would have a different view of the decision of the court of first instance. So those are things that, if it happens, it's difficult for the bar to come in.
Some journalists said they spoke about First Lady on radio, alleged that she had acquired some property, and they were prosecuted criminally. They thought that should be a civil matter between they and the First Lady.
Yeah, you see, now that's a different matter. Criminalizing speech is something that the bar has been against. And you realize that we had the criminal libel law, but I think that we should look at that section 208 all over again.
Yeah, publishing falsehoods.
Yeah. And coincidentally, Friday, I was a guest speaker at the Amnesty International conference at Ejuso. And I made the point that for me, I don't believe that we should criminalize speech. But what I'm saying is, as you have it now, Section 208 is in the statute. So the challenge for us is rather to argue, to make case for the repeal of
But the bar has not made that case yet.
Oh, the bar has been making the case, I mean, from the days of old, that we should all offenses that have impinge on free speech must be taken, because we believe as a bar that the civil remedies is far better, because the problem for me with Section 208 particularly is what amounts to false news.
It's clear, it's quite elaborate. It says that, in your opinion, or you ought to have known within your knowledge, it was false, and then you published it. But then it must create panic. That's where some of them go to that. If I say a state official has done something, how does that create panic?
But Paul, why is it that we only prosecute people when they make those allegations against public officials?
Yes, but that's what the civil society is expecting the bar to be saying.
And we've been doing it.
No, they don't think so.
No, you see, Paul, let me give you an example. One of the things that people have to understand is that in the days of old, you had one state-owned. And you know the reason why people always had the bar? Because what happened is that if you listen to those days, the bar's position will be read only for the next item to be the editorial of a state countermanding what the bar had said. But now we have media landscape has changed. We don't control the editorial policies of media houses.
Majority,
so,
100 of them.
I'll give a case in point. When I think it was during the registration of the new electoral register, and the point at that time, now I think Minister for Fisheries and Aquaculture pulled a gun or something.
Yeah.
The bar condemned that action. We issued a statement. We monitored. It just sort of died.
Oh, nobody used it.
I'll tell you something. And then after 2019, after our bar conference, we had a request from the leadership of the National Democratic Congress that former President Mahama and other executives of the NDC were meeting stakeholders to discuss matters of national interest so that they put together their manifesto. And in the interaction, that Mr. Forson was the National Secretary at the time. And in interaction, that accusation came up. And we actually drew their attention. So the day that I was watching the vetting of Ms. Howard Kunz, I realized that now the minority that had pulled our statement and was questioning her. So the question is, the bar issued the statement and it fizzled out. Recently, when we issued a statement on what the MP from Medina said about political judges, right? Our national PRO...
Yeah, but that was used.
Yeah, that was used, but our national PRO went out. And one media house specifically accused us, and we pulled out all the statements that we've issued, and they were actually shocked. But the question is, for example, if we issue a statement now, Metro TV decides not to broadcast it, we cannot control it. So the question is, the bar is not kept quiet. But the thing is, people should understand, the topical issues these days are political. For example, let's take the last year. We can look at e-levy and the government decision to go to the IMF. That has got absolutely nothing to do with the bar.
No, but they don't want the bar to. They want the bar to speak on human rights. Fundamentally, the same thing the bar has been doing, not economics, but the lawyers, the lawyers' big heart for the guaranteeing of human rights in Ghana.
Yes.
And constitutionalism. So the president does something that is unconstitutional. They expect the bar to say something about it.
And that's what the
Parliament does something that is technically legal. The quorum, the numbers of parliamentarians that make a quorum, it ended up in a brawl. Ghana got a bad name. The Bar Association didn't come and say that, as far as the bar is concerned, this is the Constitution. We urge people to go to the Supreme Court, but this is our understanding of the Constitution.
Oh, the matters before the Supreme Court.
It took a while before it got to the Supreme Court.
You see, the matters before the Supreme Court, and I'll show you something. At times, the civil society landscape is such that we don't have the luxury that the others have. For example, let's take our respected CSOs like CDD, IA, IDEG, and all this.
You didn't add Imani, please.
Imani,
Franklin
please,
is watching the program.
Please, I'll just say
Imani.
Imani. Yeah. But the point is that they can comment on any issue.
All around.
All issue. We cannot do that. So, at times, you don't hear our voice because what is being discussed is topical. For example, do you really expect the bar to make a comment about e-levy? No. And our history is...
No, I'm talking about constitutional matters. Legal and constitutional matters.
Can you give me an example that we kept quiet? Where there was a blatant infringement of a constitutional provision that the bar kept quiet. You see, one of the things that we have to understand is that the bar is not there to validate anybody's position. You may take a position that something is unconstitutional. The Supreme Court has exclusive jurisdiction in these matters. So maybe your view is that something is unconstitutional, but can anybody point to a blatantly constitutional action by any executive member of the executive of any government that the bar kept quiet? Certainly not. We wouldn't. But that, for me, it's what people don't get. That we will stick to matters that are within that remit. But I'll give an example. History is a guide. The late Ibukwashi was our president between 1998 to 2001. And I think 2001, around April, May, that was the time that President Kufuor's government decided to go HIPIC. There was this headline, the GBA is against the government's decision to go to HIPIC. Anybody who was at our 2001 conference, Sunyani, come and see what he went through. Look, those are decisions that governments are entitled to make. Because the government's decision to go to HIPIC had no...
But as bar president, he criticized it?
Yes, and from that time, it became something that all bar presidents took looked at that example, that listen, matters that governments take, whether popular or unpopular, it's for the electorate to decide. For example, for me, if a government takes a decision that within the parameters of the Constitution, it's legitimate, there's no statutory provision, the government puts itself up for the electorate to make a decision on them. And for me, that is unfair. But you see, one of the things that people should understand is that with the current president, former Greater Accra president, he even wanted to contest in '95 against Samoku Jeto and Diemeduse, and he was prevailed upon to step down because at that time he was going to be the MP for the parliamentary candidate for, I think, Abuakwa North or Abuakwa something. From the days in 2001 when he was Attorney General, he was the first Attorney General to actually pay for the lawyers from the Office of the Attorney General to attend the bar conference. And I'll tell you a story.
To be in good standing.
To be in good standing. And some of us were even very cynical about it. We thought it was a one-off for the simple reason that that was the year that W. Boafo and Paulo Jemfi were contested. And those of us supporting Paulo Jemfi felt that, I mean, the rumor was that he was supporting W. Boafo, so we felt that it was even some...
he was gathering votes for
it has come to stay. He has attended almost every conference, at least the opening ceremony since he became Attorney General, when he was Foreign Minister, as opposition leader. And I think he's ordered every conference. And for me, at every Matthias Day, he's there. I mean, one of the most embarrassing things...
Is that the reason why the bar has a soft spot for the Nako?
No, that's why people may think so. I'm just trying to explain something to you that, listen, when people should understand what happens, I'll give you one of the embarrassing episodes Tony and I had to go through. In 2020, we organized a virtual Matthias Day, but the in-person was just limited to about 50 or 60 people that reached. And we wrote to the presidency to excuse him. We were there and the president shows up. And was so embarrassed.
Oh, in the COVID, the restrictions?
Yeah, he kept him to reach it.
For Matthias Day?
Matthias Day. Even though we had written to the presidency
he shouldn't come.
That year that we were not going to have virtual. He showed up. You know, so the point is that this year's Matthias Day, I hear that we got message because they have
he had traveled or something.
And that the only thing was that he requested that we start at 10 a.m., just an hour. He was there. So for me, Matthias Day, for example, we invite speakers, we invite the president. Every time we extend invitation to all the top members of government. It's for everybody. Anybody can show up to attend. So because maybe he's always at our functions, people may seem to think that...
Yeah, but he's also an sort of a bar, he's a proper bar member.
Absolutely.
So then people may be right to suggest that there's so much coziness between the bar and the president, they can't say anything.
No, I'm just saying what coziness, because for me, has the president engaged in any blatant constitutional
when he selected his ministers? Okay, so I get the point. So for instance, when he selected his ministers, the first set of ministers, over 100, civil society was saying that the bar is quiet. But the point you're making is that that's a political decision.
Because
it's not illegal to have 5,000 ministers. Absolutely. But as soon as he crosses the legal line, the bar will be there to speak.
Absolutely.
So far he hasn't.
For example,
6 years.
For example, the Ghana's ranking on the press freedom.
Yes.
And my Amnesty International, like I said, that it's a matter of consent for everybody that our rank is coming up. But the point is, at times people make these accusations, and I want somebody to pick up on a specific allegation where the current president or any president engaged in something also blatant that the bar kept quiet. But as I said, there's no maximum limit.
The Caleb Kuda issue where he was brutalized by security officials, is a journalist who was doing his work surreptitiously anyway, but however he is entitled to the freedom, and the bar is a big bulwark for this narrative. The bar didn't say anything.
Oh, there's a reel of Mr. Forson receiving his petition at the Southern Secretariat.
Oh, I see.
Absolutely.
Oh, sorry.
Absolutely.
So I become like President Mahama who didn't know that.
You see, that's what I'm saying. That you can, Mr. Forson, I was absent that day, but Mr. Forson and other executives were there to receive the petition and supported the petition because we felt that as a journalist, that was not the way to, even if he had breached security protocols, you don't arrest a journalist in this broad daylight with all as if he's some armed robber fugitive from justice. And the petition, the bar supported them. They actually came to our National Secretariat, and my predecessor was there to receive it.
Okay, there's another one. Radio stations were closed down by the NCA, and it was thought to be restricting press freedom by those who were affected. Bar Association didn't say anything because it was Akufo-Addo.
No. The question is, if you don't pay for your license and the NCA decides to exercise its statutory power, what do you do? You know, it may sit on this, it's like a seat belt. The law says that wear your seat belt, but most people don't wear it. But when the policeman stops you and asks you, Paul, why not your seat belt? And I arrest you. Can you say that because most commercial drivers don't put their seat belt on? You see, this is a difficulty is that things may not be expedient, but is it lawful? If it's lawful, the bar's hands are tied. If it's inexpedient, as I'm saying, it's for the government to risk its popularity. But if it's unlawful, then you see the bar. And it's something that we're going to do. But you see, in the days of old, for example, every single day, a public tribunal would issue a verdict. And you have the constitutionally created judiciary. So almost every day, there was some infringement or something unconstitutional. So there was something for our fathers to, you know this Martyrs' Day that we're talking about? If you listen to if you know the history of it, and at least my father was the National Secretary around that time in 82-85.
Hey,
yes,
I see.
Yes, and Mr. J. Kajima was the president. My father tells some of the stories. At times, it's like watching, it's like, is he really lying? Or so they got even arrested. And until, I think, Justice Adom became Chief Justice, judges were not even attending. That is the era in which the Peter Jettis and the Nutifafa Queenians and the J. Kajimans found themselves. Today, Martyrs' Day.
Oh, they were not attending Martyrs' Day?
They were not attending.
They were afraid of...
No. You know, you have to understand, it was Justice Akwa's time that they erected the bust.
Yes.
It was Justice Adom's time that I think judges started attending officially, and then Justice Akwa's time, he actually collaborated. Because if you really look at it, the Martyrs' Day should even be celebrated by them. But to think that that was the era that our fathers found themselves. Today, Martyrs' Day, everybody shows up. That is the era that we're talking about. So that era was a different era from now. But one thing that we also have to know is that I think in the last 30 years, governments primarily have shown a desire to work within the dictates of the Constitution. It's not perfect, you know. So naturally, the bar's activism thing. But Paul, for me, why do people still expect us to be issuing statements? I think that we're just giving an easy pass, and I'll tell you why. There's a criticism that I always raise up my hand. What we have not done. Any student of constitutional law will realize that in '93, when we ushered in the Fourth Republic, leaders of the bar stopped issuing statements and started going to the Supreme Court. How many GBAs, Attorney General cases, do we have?
There are quite a few.
Absolutely. You get the point. So our fathers now realizing that there was a far more potent form of activism resorted to that. Issuing a statement in the revolutionary era was the highest form of activism. But issuing a statement in this era is an easy pass. And I think that bar president are even giving passes by people asking us just to issue.
Let me just announce that we have just 5 minutes to go, but we're going off Metro TV now. We're on social media. If continue listening to your boy, I'm terribly enjoying his intelligence. And then we'll take some text messages. 5 more minutes and we'll be done on social media. Good Evening Ghana Official on Facebook.
But there's something that we've not done enough. Public interest litigation. Let me give you an example. Say a journalist on Metro TV is arrested in the course of his job and maybe is brutalized by the security agencies. The bar has two options. The bar issues a statement and goes to sleep. What about if we take up the matter pro bono and actually go to the High Court and get orders made in his favor, in the enforcement of human rights, which will be better? I think that we have not done enough. On that one, I'll raise up my hand. But the point is that if our fathers even realized that the time for change had come and started invoking the original jurisdiction of the Supreme Court where they felt that things were not being done right, why should we go back to that era of issuing statements. I'm not saying issuing statements have no effect, but it doesn't carry the weight that it carried in that era. I think that we should now be looking at legal remedies, constitutional remedies. The Constitution gives us a lot of remedies. There are statutory provisions now. The rules of court now has procedure for the enforcement of human rights, all in our rules. Why don't we help people? And I think that we can achieve far better social justice with that than just issuing statements. For me, the demand that we issue statements, I think it's an easy pass.
Issue statement to condemn. That's what civil society wants.
Yes, issue statement. But what about if we get orders of the court?
That's stronger.
That's
But
stronger.
Bar doesn't do this public interest thing you're talking about.
That is something that I'll raise up my hand. That's what I'm saying. That's a far more legitimate criticism of the bar than this issue statement. But at times, Paul, there's something about this country. When somebody makes a statement, everybody seems to follow. This thing about the bar has lost this. The bar has lost activism.
It's not verifiable.
What's the empirical evidence? It's just somebody makes that statement and everybody seems to be reciting it. It becomes a worn-out, an old refrain, a worn-out hymn book. The bar, at times people see you and the criticism just sort of, when you ask them, give me specific instances. Where's the empirical evidence? It's unwanted.
Okay, let me see text messages. Are you ready to give us a few and then we'll wrap up with
Okay. All right, so from Citizen Solo, please ask him about SAL, S-A-L-L. And then from Anthony Asari Boache, Lawyer Yao is really educating us, and I pray most people listening would get the wisdom he is spewing. From Richard Ejisa, this is no news. The political power of every government is and will reign over every institution, including the bar. They are controlled by government, and we are not surprised of their inability to perform their responsibilities when dealing with the state affairs. We had various issues of absenteeism in the part of MPs, but the bar kept mute and never responded to fight for Ghana. Constitution is supposed to work, but the mechanisms are not robots, but we are the enforcers. Ghana, we have a long way to go.
Let me take this one. Our president, this one says that, Paul, you missed something. Ask Yabuafo. As many as 8 people died in the last election. Elections characterized by intimidation and violence should not be countenanced. It's not healthy for our democracy. Was the bar listening? Okay, so you keep that question. Okay, let's go on then. Who next? Keisha.
This one's from Darling Boy. We all agree we have problems as country, but we can only get solutions when we as citizens take responsibilities and pay the tax we need to pay. It's time to change our mind and attitude as Ghanaians. Indeed, Paul, Ghana is going to IMF not because we have mismanaged the economy, but because of some external factors that goes beyond the control of the government. My humble appeal to Ghanaians is to rally behind the government in the difficult moments we found ourselves. God bless Ghana. And this one says, today's program is up. Okay, now let me do this one. NPP communicators learn from Paul the way he can easily count the achievements of government and tell the people, Paul, kudos, because all you say is correct. Good presentations. NPP communicators should come and listen to how to communicate. Fantastic submissions by Paul. I'm now okay with Ghana going to IMF support. This one is from Francis. He says, Paul, we all agree these things are important and had been done. The problem now is the cost of living and petroleum product prices. How do we manage that? Thank you, Rede. And then this one is from Ernest Watson. Ghanaians don't like paying taxes, but want every good thing to be done for us. What species of human beings are we? Our leaders are also another problem for the country. They are not accountable and extravagant. Okay, that's okay. And then this one says, to be honest, the problem isn't e-levy, but we as a nation lack innovations and have resorted to easier ways when it comes to raising revenue and also making prudent expenditure decisions. Some cycle by every government. Aren't we learning from the past governments?
Also coming from Bennett down, so You cannot read the book of Lamentations in the time of Hebrews. Serious punchline. And also coming from Y.A. Hamid Tolon, very wicked minority in parliament who doesn't have the good people of Ghana at heart. They are just so desperate for power and they could do everything possible to devastate the government. Meanwhile, Ghanaians are aware of their evil deeds and will deal with them in 2024. NDC, never again. Also from Dr. Charger, NDC without free SHS, cancelling of allowance, no factories, no ambulance, no global pandemic, no global crisis, yet they still went to IMF for policy credibility. The difference is clear. Also from Christina Kwatima, thank you for your insightful analysis. When Mahama went to IMF, there were no economic crisis and no war to Ukraine, yet he went to IMF. And lastly, coming from Dr. Baba Zamu, Master Planner, Junior Kentampo. Good evening, Paul. Good evening, Apostle Paul. Ghanaians shouldn't fall victims of ex-President Mohammed's short memory syndrome. Have we soon forgotten about the super fantastic competence governance of President Nana Ado's first term? He took the economy from 3.6% to 7% before COVID-19 pandemic. Today, the NDC has the balls to talk about the economy, and it's all because of COVID-19 and Russia-Ukrainian war. They should give us a break. And also from Citizen Francis, Akufo-Addo's IMF is not the same as Mohammed's IMF. John Mahama went to the IMF to pay judgment debts, misuses the resources under SADA and JIDA, etc. Akufo-Addo's IMF is a bold decision to maintain the running of the free SHS / the TVET and other flagship policies, as well as ensuring the continuous implementation of the infrastructure projects, including roads and railway systems across the country. And lastly, from Lorenzo Kony, the nation is bleeding because we are not wishing ourselves well. If Party A wants Party B to fail and Party B also wants Party A to fail, how then will we build our country into riches? Help us, Lord.
Okay. Right, so Albert says, he's in East Legon, he says, insightful discussion with the bar president. So critics of the IMF move should come out with an alternative, that is all. Kofi says, I admire the bar president, knowledgeable man, great hockey player too, okay. And someone says that, Paul, your guest seems to be suffering with his chair. Anyway, so this is to the point of the killing. He says the bar did not speak against the killing of 8 people during the election. They also did not speak about the fact that the president has not said anything about it. Now, this is from Nanake. It says, Paul, you have to join the team meeting with the IMF. God bless you. Ghanaians should be wary of the NDC's propaganda, else our dear country will sink if we don't hand over power to them. This one is from Maunyo in Abokobi. He says, it's obvious Ghana cannot move an inch with this NDC and NPP back and forth. What we need now is National Development Plan and overhaul of our constitution. And lastly, this is from King in London. He says, I say this and posterity judges on this. Free SHS is the single most important thing that has happened to Ghana since independence. Travel and see how people beg at Kotoka just to get a simple form filled for them, and you will know how important education is. Imagine having to pay your kids' fees in this difficult time. Ghanaians should learn to be a bit grateful. Okay.
Okay, just one more question about the election-related debts. That seems like a legitimate one. They said the bar didn't say anything about it and didn't criticize the president for not saying anything about it.
Well, honestly speaking, 8 people dying during the election. I think on that score, we may not have dealt with that specific instance. But I remember when there was a brawl in Parliament, we issued a statement and we condemned all forms of violence. But that specific issue of 8 people dying, of course, I think that most of the time, some of these things, you have to understand that the difficulty for the bar in that era is when you have these allegations being made, and it's not coming from, say, security agencies, but it's coming from different political views. Because most of these times, what happens is that somebody will say that, oh, people died here, another one will deny it, and it becomes very difficult for the bar to step in. Because immediately you step in, for example, if you issue a statement and it comes out that it was not true, that will have egg on our faces. But we are talking about where it is ascertained, where something is like definite. That definitely would be. So, I mean, honestly speaking, I would be the first person to admit that if indeed that happened, the bar would not have made a comment on that specific matter. But as I said, I'm sure that it's one of those during the election period where you have allegations flying around that you find it very difficult to actually ascertain whether in fact it's true or not. I don't think that the security agencies came out specifically to
address that matter. They're still investigating.
Address that matter. So it becomes very difficult for us.
What's your last word on this show, Bar President?
Paul, what I want everybody to understand is that the bar is there to carry out its mandate. We are not going to check from that responsibility. But nobody should expect us to validate their position for it. But there's one thing that the bar would never do, and I can state that on authority. The bar will never engage in any form of politics. So when people are discussing matters, and this is the test that we're going to look at, if it involves constitutional infraction, human rights abuses, those things the bar would come in. But please, if it's a political decision taken by a government that is within its legitimate power to do so, the bar will not make any comment on political matters. So if people are going to expect the bar to make political decisions, at times what people want us to do, because of our immense influence, people want us to validate their position. So for example, if somebody was talking about absenteeism in Parliament, for example. Absenteeism in Parliament, everybody knows that the parliamentary process itself has ways of dealing with MPs who absent themselves. That's for the Speaker to handle. These are not matters that you expect the bar to handle, because if there is, we here, we know very well that parliamentarians mark a attendance book. The bar doesn't have access to it. So if people are not attending Parliament, and the Speaker of Parliament and the clerk and other people charged with the responsibility to ensure attendance are not doing, that's not the bar's responsibility.
Yeah, but they want the bar to comment on it.
But how
we have noticed that people are not attending Parliament and the Speaker is checking responsibility. The clerk is derelict of his duty. The bar condemns it. That's what they want.
How would we know?
Oh, it becomes public. The Speaker complains, MPs are not coming. Everybody knows that. They want the bar to issue this with exclamation marks. The Bar Association hereby condemns it. That's what Mutifafa Kunye here used to do.
Yes, but Mutifafa Kunye here was president from 92 to 95, the early days, you know, where that parliament itself had its own challenge because of the boycott by the main opposition party.
So you're saying the bar will not be issuing such statements? Commenting?
No, I mean, commenting on political matters, certainly not. I mean, the point, the bar is not going to wake up in the morning going to fishing for stories to comment on. That's a
no, stories are online already. You don't know.
Yes, I mean, that's what I'm saying. That so the bar president will not wake up in the morning with his national executive committee.
No, the secretary, not the president.
No, I'm just saying that with the national executive committee, and then we look at the newsreel. Oh, what is there? Comment on this.
Should bring their own.
Everybody.
Then the bar condemns what has to be condemned.
And the same bar members will start screaming at us that we are not.
So the issue is that the bar condemns the following acts of last week. 1, cabinet stayed too long. 2, 3, and then the bar hereby condemns it, and you sign. Yaboa for bar president. That's what we are looking for. That's the Peter Ajete one. That's power.
No, Peter
power
Ajete,
to the people. That's what it means.
Peter Ajete condemned unconstitutional, condemned human rights abuses and unconstitutional matters. Peter Ajete did not worry himself about cabinet attendance. I don't think that if you go through the archives, you see any statement that the bar condemned about the internal regulation of cabinet meetings. Certainly will not do that.
I got a present from your PR, Papa Koakwe.
Propaganda secretary.
Propaganda.
Propaganda secretary.
Good guy. He gave me this book, so please thank him for me. Who Killed the Judges?
Yes.
Yudanes book that when I was doing your speech last Tuesday, people were just texting that look at Yudanes book, and I had said Yudana was an IGP. And your propaganda secretary texted me and said he was actually the head of the investigation. Yes,
he was I think he was the chief superintendent or something.
Yes, he was the chief superintendent.
He was the lead investigator of the Special Investigation Board, and he did a terrific job. And the most important thing is that the bar honored him before he died.
Oh, the bar honored him
before he died. Yes.
On Martyrs Day.
Yes, one of the I think I've forgotten which year was. I think Justice Megache's era was one of them.
Oh, I see.
He was actually honored.
Oh, that's interesting.
He was actually
for this role.
Yeah, for his role, because you know he suffered detention.
Was he a lawyer?
No.
But then his investigations were very sound.
I mean, looking at the conditions at the time, and the stories and everything surrounding the SIB, he did an absolutely brilliant job, and I think his name should be immortalized. But I think that, Paul, going forward, I personally believe that maybe if something that the bar is going to ask for, we should look at making the Martyrs Day a commemorative day.
And because commemorative day.
Yes, because we have to constantly remind people. You know, I will say that in my speech, I made that thing. It's very personal to me.
Yeah.
Personal because I sat in the same class with Yahweh Japan. And I didn't know that 40 years from that incident, I'll be the bar president to preside over the match. Cornet Japon's younger brother, just a Japon's son.
Okay.
He was my classmate in the same classroom at Pampa College. And I think that, I mean, at that time, we all know what he went through. And we were young at that time, and it was very difficult. I don't think that one day my son should be able to be a bar president, and then he's on a Matthias Day, and his classmates whose father has died in this circumstance should be sitting there. It's very difficult. So I think that it should be commemorative so that people constantly remind ourselves of what these things are. That's why for us at the GBA, there's so much consternation when you hear people saying there should be a coup, there should be a coup, there should be a coup. And I keep on asking people, those of us who lived under the coup d'etat, I mean, we saw Odifo Asare, I mean, all those things. I mean, Kumasi, it was quite scary. You know, that's not something that we wish for. I would tell anybody that if you have a problem with any political party that is in power, campaign against that political party legitimately, get people to vote out that party. That is far more important. Instead of you to use your activism to ask for people to truncate the republic, just put together that activism and get people to actually peacefully change the government. We've changed governments. We changed the government in 2000. We did that in 2008. We did that in 2016. I mean, that is, we seem to have this cyclical 8 years. And in all these things, we've kept the republic together. It's far better than any form of military adventurism because it's not helped us anyway. And it actually leads to cluelessness and settling of score. That is why every Ghanaian should understand that so far as you have somebody who hates you, and I think everybody had somebody who hates you, maybe for something even as banal as anything, you get the point. That person may end up being a leading member of any military government and will come and settle that score. So those who are actually yearning for it should may be surprised that they may be more at risk than a politician, because some politician may have a contact that can run away, can maybe escape to some neighboring country. You, the person who may be the one announcing, ladies and gentlemen, maybe the person that who you had a personal grudge with, and then you may end up somewhere else. So please, I'll repeat that. Let the Fourth Republic be the last republic.
Okay, thank you very much, Yabwafo, and thank you. Do you have any interesting ones? No, okay. It's past 11, as in 17 minutes past the top of the hour. Thanks for watching this edition of Good Evening Ghana. As always, we'll be back next Thursday with another edition. Good night.